what have you been up to? What have you been doing over the last little while?
Well, I've got a big pot of vichyssoise going.
Nice.
Vegan variety, of course. And decorating for the holidays, because that's a big thing for me. And getting things together for our little show today, which I hope I don't mess up my notes. I hope I can remember everything I've written in my notes.
You know what? Yeah, this is for obviously entertainment. This is also for information,
right?
To give people, the more information that you have in your tool chest, the better off you are. The more that you can make connections between things, and you could say, okay, I see how this is working and whatnot. So absolutely.
Look at the chat with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I forgot to push the button.
Wonderful. So hello to Maureen D'Amico, Nathan Sipley, Laura Cizak, Book. Hello, Book Bewitched. Trancing with Spirit. That is Sherry.
Yes. Sherry.
Hi, hello, Sherry. So glad that you are here with us. Leah, hello, Leah. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining us. So just to get some of the housekeeping out of the way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm getting very, very close to 4,500 subscribers. I'd like to hit that as soon as I can. I'm hoping that maybe 5,000 by the end of the year. It is certainly doable. So make sure that you do that. Leave a comment after the video. It helps with the algorithms and so on. So this, hello, Teresa. This particular show is going to, we're not taking any questions unless they are directly pertinent to what it is that we're discussing. And a lot of this is going to be me sitting back and letting Diana do her magic. Because there is an awful lot of information, and we're examining the events or the things that kind of happened in April 1945.
Even 41. I backed it up to 41.
Yes. So there's a little bit of background, and it's just, there was, for me, what started this was I got a download about looking at the events of April 1945. That kind of started this. And what happened in April 1945? Well, April 12th, FDR in the US died. On April 27th, 1945, Benito Mussolini died. And April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler died. So
10 days after his birthday, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the other thing. They were all close to their birthday in a couple of months.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm feeling that the same energy with the passing or the removal of three major world leaders in March and April of 2025. And there is a good deal of correlation and things in there. So rather than me just going on and on and on, I'm going to turn it over to Diana. So please educate us. Let us know the astrologically and whatnot, what what we're kind of facing, what some of the parallels are. And there's a lot of parallels.
Well, and the biggest thing is 2028 is the Uranus return on 1945. And so that means that 1941, when the World War actually began, after the attack at Pearl Harbor, that's a Uranus return. So this pattern is in there. So the first thing I did was to look at the USA chart for the event of December 6th, 1941. So already in 1939, we were involved. We were sending aid, just as we were doing to Ukraine. We were sending it to Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, all of the different names of countries that, not that the borders changed, but the names changed, especially back in those days. They were changing constantly. And my heritage is from an area where we're called Kashub, because it's the border between Germany and Poland. And that was a constant back and forth, back and forth. So in 39, we're already involved with the European front. But then here comes Japan. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden?
Hirohito.
Thank you, Hirohito, because it's Hiroshima, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Hirohito decides he's going to attack America. So he bombs Pearl Harbor. A little side note to that, my uncle was stationed on the Arizona, and he just happened to not be on board that ship when it was attacked. And he went on to be a boxer in the public when he came back from the war, but he was also boxing when he was in the war, because it wasn't wartime. So that was one of the reasons why he wasn't there. He was working out at the gym.
Yes.
It was like 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that, Hawaii time, when they were bombed.
Yes.
So when I look at the chart for that and compare it to the 1776 4th of July chart, there's a full moon. I mean, a new moon. I'm sorry, a new moon. The new moon is in Cancer, and it happens to be in the 10th house. So that is standing up for your rights. That is, the 10th house represents the father figure, the school principal, the pope, the following of rules, the foundations. And now we have the sun at 13 degrees and the moon at 13 degrees. And of course, the moon is moving faster. So of course, that's ebbing, but the fact that it happened. So the attack occurred on December 6th. By December 8th, Japan declared war. And we declared war against Japan because that attack was their causing war on us. But then Germany and Italy joined forces on December 11th, declared war against the United States.
Yes.
And the states retaliated immediately and declared war upon those two. So now we're in these three arenas. And of course, that very quickly broadened to more than just those three arenas, because we all know that France, England, Sicily, Greece, everybody was involved, some way, shape, or form or the other.
Yes.
So that new moon, here we have this little island that is an emperor attacking the United States of America.
Yeah.
New beginnings? No. This is the new beginning, is defending ourselves, keeping our boundaries, looking at our foundations. They also had the transiting Pluto on the North Node, conjunct the North Node in that 10th house, both in Leo, which put the South Node opposite over in Uranus. Aquarius. But also conjunct our own Pluto return, right? Because that's where we start.
Yeah.
And this is where we're at right now, is this Pluto return.
Yes.
So all of this was going on. We had the transiting North Node sitting on our Neptune, and the transiting Neptune conjunct this country's Neptune in the 12th house, going, are you delusional? And now you've pulled us in, because we're not. We have to make choices, and the choices that this nation made was, we have to go to war now.
Yeah,
And
because
so,
until that time, the U.S. didn't want to get involved. They would support, they would do a lot of things, but they didn't want to have troops on the ground.
Right.
Because it was happening over there.
But somebody brought it to our shores.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Hirohito said, hey.
Right. You know. And that was the need for partnerships.
Yes.
And what we can't let go of, and what needs justice. So when we look at the first house in the Sibley chart for the US, we have Saturn at 14 degrees of Libra in the first house. The first house belongs to Aries. Libra is the sign opposite. Yes. So just like we basically have that going on right now.
Exactly.
It was going on then. But on the day of the attack of Pearl Harbor, Estrella, who is things you can't let go of until there's justice, was conjunct the Sibley chart Juno. And Juno is about partnerships. And in the first house, it's like, okay, who are my allies, right? And Estrella can't let go, because they're all under attack also within their own borders, let alone without around the whole entire world, yes. Right? So now there's alliances being formed, new alliances being formed. We also had the transiting Sun at 14 degrees of Sag, kind of in this quincunx to the natal Sibley chart Sun of Cancer. So with that, there is this adjust. Who do we fight? Who do we go after first? Especially since all those little things were coming together a couple of days apart. You know, World War being declared by dragging us into it, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have the transiting Venus is conjunct the Sibley chart Pluto and South Node. Now, again, that's in the 4th house, defending ourselves, love of country, love of nation. And this was different than World War I, and far different than the technology that we have today. But this was a sense of loyalty that had never been seen before. Yeah. Comparatively, World War I was small potatoes. Yeah. Then you have the transiting South Node in Pisces sitting conjunct the Sibley chart Sedna in Pisces. Now, what's Sedna? She's about sacrifice and adaptation. So what was sacrificed was all of the men and women that died, be they civilian working in their own private sector or soldiers, boots on the ground. Where's the adaptation? Women went to work in a factory. Cars are starting to roll. Airplanes are starting to roll. The biplane is a thing of the past. Now we're making tanks. Now we're doing all this other stuff, and all the guys are off to war. The female had to go to work to provide. Yes. And the victory gardens, they were also just as important, because there was so much that needed to be done. Every little thing counted. Now, my dad was stationed on Tinian, but I can tell you stories because of that. He loaded the bomb on the Enola Gay. He was the ground crew to take care of all of those planes. He knew Tibbets. He was a flight instructor. He was a staff sergeant. And he said, and I have no reason to think otherwise, they knew something was up, but they had no idea the magnitude of what was going to happen with these two H bombs.
Yeah.
So his was the one that in the Enola Gay, it went over to Hiroshima.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. So then we have our Chiron being visited by the transiting Mars. Again, all of these woundings, all of this past stuff coming back to light again, trying to break ties with Europe and not being able to without going to war. And so again, now we're off for the battle. And because that's in the 7th house, we know that this is the only way to get equilibrium. And then, of course, when I look at this chart for Pearl Harbor, which is what the transiting planets are, when I look at the conjunction of Neptune hitting our Neptune on our shores, think about it. Hawaii surrounded by water, Pearl Harbor surrounded by water, Neptune in the 12th house, choices, but also delusion.
Yes.
They bombed us. So I look at that Neptune conjunction as Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I look at Italy, I think of that is, I'm sorry, when I look at Sedna, I think of that as Italy, because Italy went along with the crowd. Mussolini didn't have the same fiber that Hitler had or that FDR had. Not saying it, you know, they all three have things in their chart that say world leader, but the choices that are made and the alignments between Hitler and Mussolini, they had the same childhood.
Yeah.
They had neglect from a missing parent, an attitude parent. And then they both wanted to be artists. And they were both deprived of going to do that. So in that frustration, you think of them as children. What happens to a child that doesn't ever get caught being good?
Yes.
But only ever punished for no matter what it is they do, they didn't do it right. They grow up to be that.
Yes.
So then that Mars factor, there's the leader. There, you know, he's the one with that. That's Germany. He's at 15 degrees. Sedna is at 20 degrees in the transiting, and Chiron is at 20 degrees for the Sibley chart, and that's all in Aries. In the 7th house, opposite everything that was in the 1st house, partnerships and where we go into war and what kind of retaliation. The most interesting, well, it's not the most interesting. Everything about this to me is interesting. So I'm trying to remember everything verbatim and I can't because there's so much of it here, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
So bear with me. I will calm down in a few minutes.
No. This is, you know what? We need to have a little bit of the background in order to understand things as they are today.
Right.
But there are just so many things that are similar that if we look at what happened the last time that these things were in play, it just gives us a much better idea of what to expect.
Yeah.
Or what could happen this time around. Because, you know, I mean, it's like baking a cake. Right? You use the same ingredients all the time, you're going to end up with the same cake all the time.
Unless somebody jumps.
Yes. Yeah.
So another fact is that in the Sibley chart, the parts fortune is in Taurus in the 8th house of secrets, right? And what does parts fortune represent but spiritual awakening,
Mm-hmm.
choices to be made. The thing that looked like something bad that turns out to be a blessing in disguise,
Yes.
right? They attacked our shores, men were lost, but the blessing in disguise is the world power that and the alliances with other nations in Europe that came out of this, including the Reformation of Japan,
Yes.
which was done by occupied America, occupying Japan from 45 to 52. It was no, it was 5 years that they were there. I'll find that note sooner or later. So our spirit awakening was the fact that Taurus was conjunct our parts fortune in with Saturn, and our Vesta, which is our shores, was at 19 degrees. Our parts fortunes at 21 degrees. Saturn transiting was at 23 degrees, and Uranus was at 27 degrees. Now, all of that may have been a little bit slower moving, but that's support in the eighth house. The secrets that you need in order to fight this kind of a battle. You have to avoid the subterfuge. You have to have the spiritual awakening. You have to have faith. You have to have belief in yourself and your allies. You have to trust that nobody's a spy, and yet you know that they're going to be. That is your secret. The eighth is okay. We got this secret too. It's also about other people's money. So when we think of money and the pentacles in the tarot, this is about grounding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the house natural home of Scorpio. And it has the opposite sign. This is going through the chart like this, just like it is in the sky now. It is the opposite sign of what lives in that house. So you have Scorpio in the second house of Taurus, and you have Taurus in the eighth house of Scorpio. So they're working together. This is, I believe that when you have an opposition, it is actually a conjunction at a distance. And
Mm-hmm.
when you are working together at a distance, you have both things covered. You have your spies in the camp on both sides. You have a spy who figures out who the mole is on the other side and who the bad guy is on the other side as well.
Exactly.
So that pretty much takes us around the chart when we're looking at the Sibley chart and the beginning of the war itself. But what was interesting about the end of the war for Japan was, so it starts on December 8th. They bomb on the 6th and declare war. We declare war on the 8th. A few days later, Germany and Italy declare war. And we have the sun in the ninth house, higher thinking, in Sagittarius. We have the rising sign is Pisces. When all of these decisions were being made, these are choices, not necessarily perfect choices, but they're where you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And like I said, water, when we were attacked, was a big thing.
Yeah.
And the moon was in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another heart thumper, right? Because Leo is ruled by the sun and the heart. Boom, boom. We got to do this. We have no choice.
Yes.
So we declare war back on Germany and Italy right after they declare war on us. The nation is fully engaged in a world war from shore to shore.
Yes.
So when we got done with that, I can't help but bring a little levity here, because if you think back to the movie The Mouse That Roared, anybody ever saw that movie with Peter Sellers? Go watch it again. If you've never seen it, oh, please watch it. Because one of the themes for Fenwick, what was it? It's the Grand Duchy of Fenwick, is that they're this little country, and the only thing that they export and what they're known for is making wine.
Yeah.
And America
Yeah.
is found a cheaper way to make it.
Yeah.
So they decide that they're going to attack. Well, they attack in New York Harbor during an air raid practice, right? An
Yeah.
air raid practice. So there's nobody around but like a trash guy.
Yeah.
And he sees these guys, he thinks they're Martians because they're all dressed up in knights of old armor, you know, like
Yeah.
Knights Templar.
Yes.
So they think that, oh, we'll do what Japan did. We're going to attack the shores and then they'll take care of us. And they're going to make sure that we get our shit together. And of course, the war goes on and on and on. And it didn't happen overnight. And that's exactly what happens in The Mouse That Roars. Of course, it's tongue in cheek. And it's definitely worth watching because Peter Sellers is in there.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to spoil anything more about the movie. It is worth watching for sure. All right. Now, when we look at FDR, the three main players on the European arena, we have to look at FDR, Hitler, and Mussolini because they're the biggest. I mean, at that time, we were allies with Russia at that time.
Yes.
It was events that followed that created, you know, I remember because I was old enough, Khrushchev banging the table with his shoe. We will get you and we won't have to fire a gun.
Yes.
And what's going on? We're under cyber attack as well as just AI period from our own people.
Yes.
So when I look at the three of them and their birth charts, they were also born fairly close together. FDR was born on January 30th, 1882. Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889. And Mussolini was born on July 29th, 1883. So as far as the big player planets go, they're generational. They're all in that same generation. So they all have Xena in Pisces in the 11th house. Just making noise because it's electrified. It's a storm. Let's have a quickening. Let's throw daggers and we don't even care what we hit, if anything. Let's just keep throwing daggers till something sticks. So they had that. They all had Sedna in Aries, 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 3 degrees. And that Sedna, like I said before, this is in their personal charts. Decisions made for sacrifice. And that also is in the 11th house, sacrifice and adaptation. The wounding, the betrayal of a parent figure, right? And each one of them had that. Even FDR had that. But how do they come out of this, right? Then you have, and that actually, I'll go over that in a minute. So there's that. They all have stelliums in the 12th house, which, you know, choices to be made.
Mm-hmm.
What do you adapt? What do you adopt in your behavior as you're growing up? Do you learn how to sidestep and become cunning in an evil way? Or do you learn how to be obedient? But there's never enough obedience if you have a parent that's beating you.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, Hitler and Mussolini both wanted to be artists. And when I look at Trump, I know this man is an actor. He should have been an actor.
Mm-hmm.
He should have been a fine actor.
Yeah.
He reminds me of the three of them, Trump and Hitler and Mussolini. He reminds me of Nero the most. Mm-hmm. The other two kind of more like Henry VIII.
Yeah.
So when we look at all of that, they each have something that shows world leadership, but they also have things in their chart that is childhood wounding that makes them little temper tantrums in the candy aisle all the time.
Yeah. Needing the attention, the look at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the Leo thing too, is being on stage and
right.
adore me, look at me.
Right.
Yeah.
They all have a prominent Leo in
Yes.
some way, shape, or form. And that includes with what's his name? Mussolini being a Leo.
Yeah.
So let me go on, set this chart aside, and let me go on to looking at each one individually. So for FDR, we have, he's an Aquarius sun in the 10th house. The 10th house belongs to Saturn and Capricorn, but Saturn used to rule Aquarius. So he's still a co-ruler to the sign Aquarius. And especially when we go back to what life was like back in the 50s, it's well, I'm sorry, 1882. This is definitely about parental respect and doing what the church says, whichever faith you're from, whatever denomination,
yeah,
and adhering to rules and foundations. So, but he's brilliant. He has quick thinking ideas. And the thing is that many people, till he died, never knew he was crippled from polio, never knew that he couldn't walk, never knew that he had polio as an adult and not a child. So his leadership qualities come when I look at the 10th house, where his sun is right on the cusp to the 9th house. It's at 10 degrees. His Mercury is at 26 degrees. And then Estrella comes into that house. And Estrella is justice. And that's at 4 degrees. It's the things you can't let go of. So here he is, President of the United States. And he's growing up with this. Nope, that ain't right. This has got to be done the right way. So that is the leadership quality that sticks out in him. Now, when I look at the 12th house choices, his 12th house is in Taurus. So we're making mud. We're stuck in that mud and we're not going anywhere because Taurus is a fixed sign. Even though Pisces is mutable, that foundation might be shifting, but we stuck our feet so deep into that sand, we're just going to sway back and forth. So he has Saturn in the 12th house at 5 degrees, Vesta at 6 degrees, Neptune at 13 degrees, which, remember, we had Japan attacking when he's in a Neptune phase, right?
Yeah.
And then he's got Jupiter at 16 degrees, and he's got Chiron at 17 degrees, and he's got Pluto at 27 degrees. And this is all in the 12th house, all in the sign of Taurus. That's a lot. And that also reflects leadership quality, the ability to use mind over matter in making and selecting proper choices, and who to delegate to, where he needs help. You were talking about a man who was confined to a wheelchair at times when the telephone was hard to use, especially once there was this attack going on. So the South Node was at 7 degrees of Gemini in the first house. I me, my. And it's a South Node. So he didn't put himself first because the South Node is what to let go of. And then that puts his North Node in Sagittarius, higher thinking, travels. And he traveled around.
Yes, he did.
Before he even, became president of the US, especially before he got polio. But there it is in that 7th house, seeking balance. As a leader, seeking balance, knowing that this is fair, firm, and impartial. You can't split hairs. We need women as soldiers and nurses just as much as we need men as soldiers and doctors, because
Yes.
that was the most going on back in those days. And his vertex is at 29 degrees of Libra in the sixth house of Virgo. Wow, we're going to get this right. His vertex is where to close doors and where to open the next one. So it worked. The vertex and the anti-vertex, which nobody really talks about much, it works a lot like the North Node and South Node. South Node, what to let go of. North Node, how to go forward. Anti-vertex, where to close the door. Vertex, where to open the door. So you want to be able to keep it flowing because they are in opposition all the time.
Yes.
But his parts fortune is at 22 degrees also. So he has this Virgo perfectionist dedication, but he's spiritual about it.
Yeah.
Right? He keeps a fair, firm, faithful dedication to everything that he does. His Hygeia is in the fourth house of heart. So he was really wounded. That fourth house belongs to Leo. Leo is in his fourth house. When Cancer, and Leo is in the fourth house. So now we have the heart rulership as well as the moon rulership of the fourth house. And so that is showing his childhood wounding and how his health progressed and declined because he cared so much about things that, you know how the body is. You get cancer, you get afflictions, you pick up the virus, the bacteria that causes a disease you can't shake, or you can come back so far from, but that's as far as you can get. So that makes him look like a world leader contingent, dedicated.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at Mussolini, we have Leo in the ninth house. That's his sun. We have his rising sign in Scorpio. That means that's beginning the first house. Well, the first house is ruled by Mars, and so is Scorpio, especially back then. Pluto, was out there, but they weren't going to mess with Pluto at that point by making it a planet. They still are messing with me, but it's a planet in my world. And then his moon is in Gemini. That's wishy-washy to me because it's in the seventh house and it's low degree. His moon is at 8 degrees. His rising sign is at 18 degrees. That's the strongest. That's that sneakiness. Doing it only for my benefit.
Yes.
And then we have his south node also in Scorpio, but it's in the 12th house. And it's at 8 degrees. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. So all of that stuff that he's got going on that makes him sneaky, that Gemini, and this is where he's got a whole slew of stuff, is in Gemini in the 7th house. And they're all at low degrees, which makes him a child. His childhood wounding probably came even before Hitler's, as far as the childhood understanding of what was going on.
Yeah.
So in that 7th house, his Neptune is at 20 degrees of Taurus, but it shares the 7th house with his Pluto at 1 degree, Chiron at 2 degrees, Sirius at 5 degrees, Saturn at 7 degrees, Juno at 8 degrees, the moon at 8 degrees, and his Mars at 13 degrees. He's a follower. Yep. Yeah. He is a follower. He doesn't stand well on his own, but he will be your loyalist companion.
Yeah.
So I don't see him as a leader. In his 10th house, he's got parts fortune. This is about making choices for him, Where is your spiritual awakening? And he's got Uranus at 20 degrees. They're conjunct at 20 degrees. His lightning bolts moments came into, whatever you want. I'll dedicate myself to you, because his Saturn is not strong. And then it's Vesta. My alliance is going to be with somebody else because Vesta in Virgo is at 26 degrees. Now it's starting to go, you know, how happy are you here? Nobody likes you. You're going to go eat worms. So I don't see him as the same type of leader that FDR was, or even Hitler for that matter.
Yes.
Now,
And who does that remind you of today?
Frumpelon?
I don't know. I've taken a wild guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy who isn't strong enough on his own to do anything, but he's going to surround himself with people he believes are stronger than he is and stand behind them and go, yeah, what he said. Yeah. What he said.
And then try to take credit for it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Nothing but plagiarism on his behalf.
Yes.
So for him, for Hitler, we have another baby son, 1 degree of Taurus in the 6th house of Virgo, right?
Yeah.
So, and he has a Scorpio rising, just like Mussolini. So they're in cahoots, secret. And his is at 3 degrees, where Mussolini's is at 18. That's, I'm your strongest ally. What do you want? I'll be your, I'll be your guy. And then he has his moon in Capricorn at 11 degrees, which makes him that testy, poke the bear kind of 11-year-old. Think about what you're like at 11 years old.
I'm not touching you. I'm not touching
yeah, right.
you.
He's
I'm
breathing at me.
you.
He's, get your feet off of my side of the car.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, when we look at the decans in astrology, it's 0 to 9 degrees gives us that coming into Saturn return, coming into the first feeling of testing. Did mom said I'm going to get burned if I stick my hand in the fire? Let's find out,
Yeah.
And then when we look at the next decade, 10 to 19 degrees, you're thinking of your teenage years and when you're starting to test the waters and getting into puberty. And then when we, and stepping a little bit away from that and getting a sense of who you are, what you can identify with, but still needing to find out that identifying with something gives the identifier its own appetite, because identity has its own appetite. And so then when we look at the last degrees, it's 20 to 29. And then it doesn't matter. From that point on, we reach the sense of maturity. And just a little side note, that's where the progressed sun can help you out, because as we mature, we do see the world in different perspectives. We have to, or we don't survive, or we turn out like some of these indignant leaders. So looking at Hitler's chart, now him in Taurus, we start with his sun at 1 degree in the final moments of being in the 6th house of Virgo. Yeah. But everything else in his Taurus is in that 7th house as well. And so that takes us to Vulcan now. Who is Vulcan? Vulcan is an asteroid or a planet that we can't see because it is so close to the sun. It is Thor's blacksmith. And when we say hammer of Thor in the sky, Vulcan is the one who created the hammer. So Vulcan is that cut the top off the mountain force. It's your first ray of strength and power. Mm-hmm. Then he's got Mercury, Venus at 16, conjunct Mars at 16. Don't give me the hiccups.
Yeah.
That conjunction. Who can I find to love and support me? Venus, willing to be subservient. And I should have looked to see if it was a night star or a daytime Venus. Because if it was a morning star, she's already, I'll fight for, I'll fight. Regardless, there is an alliance there. And then Vesta, 19 degrees. I want to make Germany a ruler. I want to make Germany a world leader. I want to conquer the world next. And then Black Moon Lilith, which is, I'm out of here. I'm all on my own and I can do this without anybody. And Mussolini, you give me any shit and don't do it my way, I'll cut your head off.
Yeah.
So he appears to be a greater leader because he's got that Taurus sun. I'm on your side. We can do this. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. But as bad a reputation as Gemini can get for being a BSer, Taurus is even bigger.
Yes.
Right? So the thing about his chart is he has 1, 2, 3, 4 yods. Now, what's a yod? A yod is the finger of God. It's 150 degrees to the point, and it's a trine at the bottom. So we have this, or it's sextile, sorry, but we have these degrees that it's like God is telling you to do this. But what's your interpretation of the message, right?
Yes.
So the one that strikes me as
I'm going to stop you just for a second, Diana. I have to disappear for a minute or two. Please carry on. I will be right back. But yeah, I'm just
okay.
All right, carry on.
He's got this one yod that points to his Uranus in Libra. It's based in Xena Warrior and Mars. So that's war. Xena is a fighter. Mars is a fighter. Uranus is the quickening, throwing the sword upside down into the ground, the sword in the stone. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to be the world leader. I don't care if I have to fight to get it. That's what was going on with that yod. Then he's got another one where it's Sedna and Neptune. Now they're both about the water because Sedna, her father throws her overboard. That's betrayal. And Neptune, while she's thrown into the water, Neptune is delusional because he doesn't know what to understand about the betrayal with his parents. We grow up trusting everything that they do, but we also know through history that his mother was just as hard as on him, if not harder, than the whole thing with Frumpalump. And the other yod is on the other side where his moon and the nose come into play. And then in the 10th house, he's got his Saturn based against the vertex. So that vertex is his spiritual awakening. It goes over to the emotional moon. The moon fluctuates back and forth. And so he didn't grow up with stability. And that yod is formed by 2 quincunxes. And what's a quincunx? Continuously trying to get it right. It's the way Robert Plant sings. Is that 5th harmonic. It's, you guys got to tune your guitar to me because I'm going to do this. And in the next stanza, I'm going to do this. So that's what's going on with that chart. Now, those guys were the key players because we heard the most about them. But Hirohito was also a key player. He's the one who dragged us into this. But he had a longer life, and his chart looks like the penitent, right? The guy who's gone to confession, and his ulterior motive was probably more like the mouse that roared than we realize. He was born in 1901 and lived till 1989, and where he died of cancer. He is considered the last emperor of Japan, even though Hirohito is the emperor, he's a figurehead because their government, their democracy is set up parliamentary like the United Kingdom. So he became a symbol of the state because when the war ended in 45, US occupied Japan from, well, bear with me, from 1945 to 1952. Now, he became a symbol of the state of unity of the people. The Constitution drafted by the United States to help them. We went there and helped them write their Constitution. He then took a very open and prominent public presence, which was totally out of the ordinary. He is the 124th emperor and considered the last emperor because as the Queen and King of England are figureheads, so too is being the emperor in Japan. So he oversaw Japan's reintegration into the world and into the international community and how they have worked going forward. So this is what makes me compare it to the mouse that roared. Little Japan attacks the shores of America at a naval base, blows up a ship, kills a bunch of people, and goes off and goes back home and can't fight this war. It was, it was a hardship on all of their citizens. War is a hardship on all citizens.
Yes.
But it's kind of like the mouse that roared attacked our shores with 20 soldiers,
Yes.
And it was one attack with a bunch of planes, basically 20 soldiers.
Yes.
Right. So he came to our shores in 1975 and met with President Ford and went to the tomb of the unknown soldier and laid a wreath there. He had cancer and he died of cancer in 1979 on January 7th, 1989. I remember when he passed, I don't want to say how old I was, but I remember when he passed. So I had compared their birth charts with their date of passing charts. Yes. Because that is just as interesting to find the things that are your checkout points. We all have them. Lord knows we've witnessed them in our own lives, let alone Trump when he got COVID. That was a big checkout point. They propped him up. And since then, he's had a couple more, but they've kept it quieter. But they're still propping him up. So with FDR, let me put that aside. La, la, la. Trying to keep all my notes in order in case I need them or in case we have enough time for all of them. FDR.
I so appreciate all the work that you did in this because it is a wealth of information.
Let me tell you, this was a rabbit hole I enjoyed going down for more reasons than I can really say. I grew up sleeping with my plastic Jesus that glowed in the dark because my father was stationed on Tinian and was part of the Enola Gay ground crew.
Yeah.
Knew Tibbets, knew all the guys, took care of all the planes, right? And that Sunday armchair relive the war.
Yes.
And I was born in 1949 and I slept with that plastic Jesus, not because of the movies, but because I knew even then that I was killed in Auschwitz and that I believed that it was so near the end of the war that Germany didn't know the war was over because that was going on. That was information my dad said to me. There's guys out in the field that we can't reach and they're still fighting and they're still dying and the war is over. The war, they can't hear the bells in France ringing. They can't hear the bells in Germany and Russia and Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. even the United States, the bell, the war's over and nobody could hear it. Reminds me of John Lennon. I can hear him singing right now. So we grew up living in that shadow and understanding all of it and recycling and still growing, doing victory gardens and everything that is still poignant today as it was back then. Because this whole AI technology that we have, this ability to flip a switch and get an answer, or see you in Canada and be here, share the same space, this can all blow up that fast.
Yes.
And you better know, I still got my phone. Well, you saw it.
Yeah.
In case I get to plug that in again.
Yes.
You know? And I was able to use that phone from 1945, this Bakelite phone, up until I moved back here to Michigan, because Virginia provides service to switch the pulse at their end so that you get the regular dial. Enough said about that. So I just want to keep that together in case we get that far. That's a birth chart. That's a death chart. Death chart. Okay. That was Hitler's birth chart. Okay. So FDR's life birth chart against his death chart. Hygeia is all about health. And Hygeia, excuse me, in Aquarius is the transit, and it is conjunct his sun in the 10th house. His life is draining. This is his foundation draining. His ability to move, his ability to breathe, draining. And it is also opposite transiting Pluto, which was at 7 degrees. Again, open, close, done. We can't do anything to help you. And that part's fortune is squaring the vertex. The vertex is about opening and closing of doors. And that square with the part's fortune is his ascension, his spiritual rising. The highest rising anyone can get is when we leave this planet, right?
Yeah.
So that was showing that this was a checkout point for him. You've got the transiting sun in Aries at 22 degrees, opposite his vertex in Libra at 22 degrees. More of this spiritual awakening in the strongest light. The sunlight is the strongest light. The ascension is the sun, right?
Yes.
So there's that. And then we have, he's got the shakeup in the first house, the transiting Uranus at 10 degrees, opposite his south node. This is in the me, I, me, my house of the first house. His south node is you got to let go. Yeah. Your higher self, your lightning bolt moments are now of a higher realm. Then the transiting south node has just gone over his moon as well as his Mars. His Mars was Gemini at 27 degrees. He's losing the battle. It's in the second house. His Mars is and so is his moon, and he's losing that battle. He can't hang on. He can't stay fixed. It's an air sign, Gemini, and it's an earth sign. I'm a water sign, sorry. So he's got too much moving around there.
Yep.
Time to go. So that south node is approaching his moon, and his Juno has just gone over it, and his Saturn is conjuncted and conjunct that Mars of his as well. And Saturn is like, sorry, this is the house that you make, where you make your money or keep your grounding. And that was time to go. So those were some checkup. Oh, the other one is kind of important here too. We have Sedna with his drowning breath, because people who will always have lung issues once you've had polio.
Yes.
You can't breathe. The fluid is building up in your lungs, right? So it's conjunct the transiting Xena, warrior goddess, and opposite Xena is opposite Neptune, adding to it with his Sedna right there.
Yeah.
So in between those two things, Sedna is losing this battle. She is definitely going down, which is exactly what happened to her when her dad threw her overboard. Ending of partnerships, because we got the South Node transiting in Capricorn, and his Juno is in Capricorn, and that's in the 8th house. And like I said, so many people had no idea that this man was in a wheelchair. And partnerships party. Now, when we look at Mussolini's house, we have Mussolini died of a heart attack, I believe. So he is so stubborn. And his fights were beginning.
Mussolini was actually executed.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he was hung. He and his mistress, they were trying to make a getaway.
That's right.
Yeah, and they were found, and both of them, it was very, very public hanging.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's opposite their Sedna, sacrifice, and it's opposite Xena. So, yeah. And that's, because there's so much in all three of their charts. They died around the same time. They died the same month.
Yes.
All of the same year. So all those big planets are basically in the same spot. The little degree it might have moved, or the half a degree it might have moved, isn't going to make that big of a difference.
Yeah.
But because his Neptune is opposite that other stuff, transiting Neptune rather is opposite his Sedna with that Xena in the transit. That is, I'm stubborn and being fixated on what he wants it to be. And up until the end, he was bitching at the end.
Yes.
Right. Then you have, we had the transiting sun was opposite his moon, right on his rising sign. Bye-bye.
Yep.
And then
me, don't you know who I am?
Right? Boom.
You can't do this.
No.
Yeah.
Boom. Mm-hmm. And then again, we have this Hygeia health. Somewhere along the line, I have read that he had heart issues, and that was an issue. And the hanging might have been the reason why he had it, and they just happened to happen at the same time, simultaneously. Yes. Right. At any rate, he's got Hygeia opposite his sun, and that's another boom, just like the other direction where the sun is opposite his rising sign and his moon. So he was a double Scorpio in that respect.
Yeah.
And then again, we have Selene, which is the white moon, where Lilith is the darkest angle of the moon to the earth. It's the little tiny piece of light that's left as the moon is going dark, or the closest of the light moon. So that is in a sextile to his birth. Selene, here's your opportunity to rise above it all. Here's your opportunity to open a spiritual door, but instead he goes down like a Taurus.
Yes.
When he's really not. No, he was. So there's that. And then one other thing that really caught my eye was his Juno in the 8th house, the transiting Juno, in the 8th house of secrets, is a Cancer sign. So that's more water.
Yeah.
And it is conjunct his Venus and his Jupiter, making a big show of things.
Yeah.
And nobody loved him. Nobody loved him.
Yeah.
And then we got Hitler. His body's never really been found. And I don't trust that he ever actually died back then. Okay? But they give us this date of April 30th, 1945, which is 10 days after his birthday. The others were, let's see, Mussolini was 3 months before his birthday, and FDR was 2.5 months before his birthday. So they basically all died together. What does that make me question? Beam me up, Scotty.
Could be.
Yep.
Could
We
be.
think of Zoroastrianism and Ahura Mazda coming down here with the giant fighting what? Fighting the other giants and ending and having this big war in Mesopotamia. And when we look at all of that and then think of how these guys all checked out at the same time, that we assume one of them did. But as Hirohito lived until 1989, he could have made his way down to Brazil. So many did. Remember the Eichmann trial and all of that? You know, I mean, we've witnessed this stuff in our own lifetimes for war crimes. Are we going to be able to do this again? So in Hitler's chart, you've got the south node transiting at 10 degrees, conjunct his south node at 15 degrees in the ninth house of higher thinking. How do I get out of this? And it is in the sign of Cancer. So that transiting south node has just gone over his. He saw it coming. Did he bail out of there before? Did he get away before? And when the bomb did go off and supposedly his residence was hit, or the place he was hiding out was hit, he wasn't there. Eva Braun wasn't there. They both probably got away. Then Pluto, boom, in Leo, in that ninth house, pretty much all by itself, even though it's only at 7 degrees. That's the transiting Pluto. It's in this parallel to his Juno. And his Juno is like partnerships coming to an end because that's in the 11th house. And it's in the sign of Virgo. Let me get it right for myself. Ava went one way, he went another. I'm not saying they went off happily together. Plus you have Pele Athena in there, and she's the daughter of Jupiter. He's in there, all in that 11th house with Chiron. And then it slips into from Virgo into Libra, but they're all sharing the 11th house with Neptune and Vesta. Neptune, I'm sailing away and making a home someplace else. I see this coming. I saw what they did to Mussolini. I'm out of here. And then you've got Juno on his Hygeia. So ulcers, drunkenness, addiction to other drugs of the era. Think of what he did with unidentified flying objects. What we know he did. And what we know is being hidden from us. Every single one of us here understands that there is a force out there, and we're all convinced they're protecting us, but they can't all be protecting us, because I don't think it works that way in any race, be they up there or down here. There is good and bad in everything. And it's
a collective choice. We have to make a collective choice.
That's right.
Because we all have free will.
That's right. And it's identifying with. But don't forget, identifying has an appetite of its own. So where does that identifying become competition? When you're 11 and 12 years old and you start screaming at your brother, get your feet off of my side of the car. He's breathing on me.
Yeah.
Yep. So then we have the sun in his sun. I'm sorry, his Mercury is at 26 degrees and his sun is at 1 degree of Taurus. And those are in the 6th house. But you have the transiting sun at 9 degrees, sorry, almost 10 degrees in the 7th house. Well, I'll just make it look like I've been killed, like I'm dead, like I took cyanide. Who did? Somebody else down there did, but who? It wasn't him, because they've never found any DNA. And if they say it now, it's too, I don't believe it. Sorry. Can't believe it. And so then there's other things too that reflect on that sacrifice, and the Sedna thing is involved, and the Pluto is involved. He's got that Selene, which is the last little light. Okay, this is it. I'm taking it with me as I go out, because now we're going to go to the other side of the world. And that, with that, when we look across, we're looking right at Pluto. The transiting Pluto is opposite the conjunction of transiting Selene and transiting and his birth Selene. So that again brings us this full circle coming round. Right? And Pluto, when you stand in integrity, is your friend. But when you don't, it'll get even with you on its own.
Yes.
Now, how much time we got, sweetie?
Yeah. Well, you know what? We are at an hour and 12 minutes. How much more have you got? Let me put it that way. And the reason that I say that is I'm starting to feel a little off.
Okay.
And so I tested my blood sugars. I'm diabetic, and it was very, very low. So hence my disappearance. I'm trying to
that's okay.
apple juice and whatnot into me. So if we can go,
let me just do one last thing then, and then we'll say goodnight. We can come back and revisit another time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That
could be a part 2.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things that's most prevalent for all of us readers right now is Donald Trump going into inauguration and sitting in the White House again. When I look at his chart, the next checkout point that he doesn't have one in 2024. He got over that hump. Anything going forward, I don't see one for 2025. I don't see him checking out until the end of 2029 or 2030. That doesn't mean he's all there, but I don't see him checking out. I don't see him not going into the White House. Whatever, I mean, the way there's got to be a secret to come out, but I am not finding it in the chart. Doesn't mean it isn't there. Doesn't mean that someone else isn't going to see it. But my brain was also so saturated by the time I got to him. Absolutely. Which is, that's another 18 pages.
Yes.
So we'll leave it there and we'll revisit it, and I'll try and have more information.
Oh my gosh, that would be absolutely fabulous, because I think right now I do agree with you that I think maybe we may not have a funeral for him, but that doesn't mean that his mind is functioning.
Right? Exactly.
So, and I'm particularly struck by some of the things that you have said about what was happening in the during the 1940s and the different charts, and particularly the the sharing of information, where we're making choices. And it almost feels like a lot of that is coming back in terms of, okay, identify who your allies are, work with your allies, know that everyone has skin in the game, and everyone wants to make sure that they come out just a little better than the other guy.
Yep.
But it's time to identify the players, and I just have this feeling that is what is going to be coming up over the next couple months, is that information is going to come up identifying who the players are.
That's it. You identify.
Yes.
Identify
Yes.
doesn't mean identify with, because
Yes.
identity is an individual thing. And so identify who the players are, but everybody has to have the space that you want.
Yes.
Which is the space to be me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why I believe that identity has an appetite of its own.
Absolutely.
We excel because we want to be better people. That's a good ego. We excel because we want to be the biggest shit on earth. That's a bad ego.
Exactly.
Excuse my French.
I
speak French very well.
French away. But so I've seen a couple comments where, people definitely want us to do part 2. So for sure, we can, I'm absolutely open to it. And
Cam LeBlanc, are you my friend from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Not that LeBlanc is probably not a common name, but do you live on the reservation? Are you Jimmy?
Okay, well, you know what, you guys, yes, we will do part 2 soon, and we'll try to get it done before depending on Diana's schedule. We'll try to get it done before the end of December, and might even go the
New Year's Eve.
Well, New Year's Eve, I think I'm already booked for New Year's Eve, but we'll certainly discuss it. So just keep an eye out on the community, my community page, because I'll certainly post it on there when we'll have it again. And while I'm talking about the community tab, before I let you guys go, is next Saturday, the 21st, please join me along with Sherry, Trancing with Spirit, as we are going to have our second Shine the Light event. And the first one worked out really, really well. We learned an awful lot. We were flying by the seat of our pants, but hey, we did it. So the second one is going to be a little more organized and whatnot. Yes, it is. It's winter solstice. It's Yule. It's a whole bunch of things. So join us as we send out love, light, compassion, and unity to the world wherever it is needed. And so this will be all about positivity and so on. And for those of you that were there the first round, you know what we do at 7 p.m.
Right?
But for those of you that weren't there, we're starting at, I believe, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just before 7, we'll have a little meditation, prayer, and set the intention of what we're sending out. At 7 o'clock, we'll send it out, and we will ask those of you that are on the Eastern time zone, we'll ask you to turn on your porch lights.
Yep.
And then we will continue. And when we hit 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll do the same thing. And again, we'll set the intention. We'll ask you to turn your lights on at 7 and keep them. And we're going to do that until we go through the time zones, so that by the time we're done, let's light up Canada. Let's light up the US.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep your porch light on. If you don't have a porch light, put a lamp in the window.
Or your Christmas lights are probably on.
There you go. Yeah, do
Hello.
that. But it just the energy of the first one that we had was so powerful.
Yes.
That I can't wait for the second one. And then there's going to be others. So yeah, absolutely.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you. And yes, Diana and I will decide as soon as this show ends on when we're going to do it again. So we'll let you guys know. Thank you for joining us, each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. And yeah, love and light to everyone out there. Take care. All righty. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.